Okay, all right. Please stand for just a minute. I wanted to do a moment of silence for past Councilwoman BJ Yanfola. Her husband, Andy Reeve, passed away last week. And just wanted to take a moment of silence for. Thank you. Yes, Andy was a fire commissioner and involved in the community for years and years. Okay. First, we'll open to public comment. Anyone in Zoom who wishes to speak?
Pam has her hand up.
Okay. Oh. Pam?
Yeah, hi there. I just have a question. I see that you have site plan review when you're looking at the original legislation, but just correct me if I'm wrong. Has not that legislation been changed twice since that date of 2017?
That's what we're going to discuss today.
So you'll assess all three changes then, from the original to the current? Is that my understanding?
We're going to go through the history today.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, and figure out direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, first, or next item on the agenda, I should say, is I am asking that we cancel the May 20th work session. It is the day of the Board of Assessment Review, and normally they are here seeing the public, anyone who wants to brief their assessments between 10 and 12 and 7 and 9 p.m. But because of the change in the assessment this year, they're getting more applications, and the expectation, just hearing chatter in the community is that they will have more people, so they'd like to add another session from 3 to 5 p.m. To that Tuesday. So
That's fine with me.
give them the room so they can just be here all day.
Just to ask, not a suggestion. But does it make any sense to move the work session to Monday, or is it just too much?
We have the board meeting in WAC on Monday.
Yeah, it's just much. Yeah, that's, we, instead of cancel, we could postpone it to, let me just.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I was gonna say move it to Wednesday.
Amber, since we have the Justice Hall open to us now, is that something that they can work out of Justice Hall, just out of curiosity?
We wouldn't want to put them in the downstairs space, because it's not the best space for.
Because you expect a lot of people.
Right, yes, yes,
What about
yeah.
the community center?
They also need Zoom. They need Zoom? Yeah, so then this is the best room for them if they need Zoom.
Yes, yeah.
Ask him, is that-
No, some of them, there is an option that you can zoom.
Yeah, people can appeal via Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, not a suggestion, just.
Yeah, if people wanted to, because we will not have a work session the following week because it is Memorial Day, and so we don't normally have a work session the day after a Monday holiday. So that means it would be 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, we should, let's have a quick chat about moving it.
so we could move it to Wednesday, the 21st. Because as Mike said, Monday doesn't work because we've got the town board meeting that evening as well as WAC.
WAC is at 2 on Monday.
Mhm.
So, Wednesday would make sense if we were gonna try to bump it.
Mhm.
Would Tuesday morning make any sense?
No, because they're here from 10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Monday, there is a
A town board meeting at 6
6, okay.
and a WAC meeting at 2.
So they're here from 10 to 12, what happens at 12?
They break for lunch?
Oh, then they come back.
Yes, and then they'll come back. And there's also, in between the times that the public can come, they can actually start to look at and discuss some of the appeals. that have been-
Basically, we're left with the 22nd, the 23rd, is that what we're left with?
Well, the 21st is Wednesday, so the
Wednesday.
21st,
22nd
22nd.
or the 23rd.
I'm not here the 23rd. My sister has her graduation.
Well, the following week, we're doing it Wednesday, right? We're having a work session on Wednesday? No?
No.
I have a 3:30 appointment on the 21st, but I'm wide open on the 22nd.
22nd is what day, sorry?
Thursday.
There's,
I could do it. That could make sense for me.
Okay.
That would be better for
The
me.
22nd.
Yeah, that's just me.
Good for me.
yeah, I'm good with that.
Fine, okay. Christina,
I'm here.
did you say, oh, you're not here, but yes.
So we have to see if someone can
Yeah.
manage the Zoom.
May 22nd.
I can get, we can schedule coverage.
What time?
1 PM. Okay, so I'll save that in the calendar. Okay. So Avery will get the notifications sent out. All right. The next item on the agenda is ethics code update. So we have a draft. The only change there is that the existing code says a majority of such members shall be persons other than town employees, but the board shall include at least one member who is a town employee. So we'd be striking that language and changing it to no member of the Board of Ethics shall otherwise be an officer or employee of the town.
Steve, do you want to elaborate?
Sure, sure. The Article 18 of the General Municipal Law, which is the state law that authorizes local municipalities to have their own boards of ethics, says that the board shall include at least one employee, officer, or employee of the municipality. However, while county boards of ethics, while county governments are required to have a board of ethics, other municipalities like towns and villages are not. That distinction makes this a law not of general application, and therefore, under the municipal home rule law, the town has the authority to adopt a provision that is inconsistent with what Article 18 of the General Municipal Law says. It can decide for itself how to populate its boards and who should serve on them. That's home rule. And so there is a Westchester County Supreme Court decision specifically on point, saying that local municipalities can adopt such a provision. And there are several decisions of the New York State Attorney General that say the same thing. So this is well within the authority of the board. And the reason that I recommended removing the town employee from the board is not because the town employee isn't a wonderful person and a great employee of the town and an asset to the Board of Ethics, but because in appropriate situations, other town officers and employees might be reluctant to come to the Board of Ethics with their ethics inquiries if there is a officer or employee of the municipality sitting as one of the decision makers. So in order to encourage people to come forward with their ethics questions, because after all, the whole point of the ethics program is to avoid ethics violations before they occur by providing resources that enable honest town officers and employees to understand what the rules are. For that reason, it is a better practice to not include an officer or employee of the municipality on the ethics board. You want it to have a degree of independence. And of course, the Board of Ethics can use as a resource an officer or employee of the town in order to provide it with institutional knowledge and the other information that it needs to discharge its duties. But when it comes to making a decision, if there's a sensitive matter, just by way of example, and I'll end with this, I am counsel to the Town of Southampton Board of Ethics, and the town attorney's office has assigned a deputy town attorney to be liaison to that board. not as counsel, but liaison. She's wonderful, but not infrequently, a matter will come before the Board of Ethics in which she will step out of the room and not participate, not be privy to the discussions because of exactly the sensitivities that we're talking about. So that's it. I'm sorry that I went on for so long.
It's helpful, thank you.
And the ethics board is taking a look at right now an entire code update, but asks that we just do this one change for now because they're operating with 4 members. And if we can approve this, we can set the public hearing next week and have the public hearing in May, and then they can start to canvass for the fifth member for their committee. Okay.
It looks fine.
Yeah, I thought it looked fine. I was just curious, Steve, do we have to reference me here at all on home rule?
We do. We
First
do.
paragraph.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in
And
the,
the answer to that is yes, you
Oh, it's in
must
the-
invoke those powers, yeah.
okay, I just realized it's in the preamble. Okay. All right.
I think this is great.
Yeah, it's good.
Happy to take Steve's recommendation.
Mhm.
The board takes its own minutes, is that what they're doing?
No, there's a clerk assigned for the ethics committee.
Yes.
Yeah, they take their own minutes. I mean, they don't take their own minutes, there's a clerk assigned.
Shelby
I think-
used to be on the Board of Ethics, but she resigned because she can't be on the Board of Ethics and be running for office.
Right.
So they're trying to replace her, so we need to make this change so they can canvass the greater community instead of just taking a member of our town employees.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can the ethics board take their own minutes?
The
To not
answer is
have any town employee in the room?
The answer is yes, they can. The open meetings law does not require that the minutes be taken by a town employee. It's helpful to have a town employee serve as secretary to the board because that town employee can do things like coordinate schedules, plan meetings, receive and send correspondence. But no, there's no requirement of that.
Good.
Is there any restriction on AI transcription of meetings?
I have not seen any authority come down one way or the other on that. Of course, AI is something you need to be careful with and use appropriately and knowledgeably so that you don't result in fiction being created by artificial intelligence.
It still needs to be reviewed.
Right.
And also, I mean, I've seen some terrible bits of software around it, but I've also seen a couple of really good ones recently.
Spell check is bad enough.
Especially because it keeps correcting me.
Sometimes I don't want it to correct. I know, I hate that. Yeah, but getting back to this piece of legislation,
Yes,
we can proceed.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I don't think I'm fine with it. I think I would prefer the board to be completely confidential without any, that there's no risk of anything. So I would prefer the board to take its own minutes, okay, and not have anybody subject to being breaking confidentiality. That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay, that's not what this legislation is
I
about.
know that
It's already trying to.
this is only about the membership.
Right, yes,
Right.
yes, but
And
so.
that's,
And what I'm
Bring it a
addressing,
different topic. Okay, I just was asking if you were trying to incorporate that into this local law.
well, how do we address the other part of it? I mean,
That will be a policy decision.
okay,
And we're also about to do a rewrite of the ethics code.
so at that time, we can address that.
Yes.
But that's also kind of the ethics board's decision, not our decision. If they want to have a clerk, that's up to that board. I mean, I think that, I mean, we don't tell the planning board they can or can't have a clerk. I think it's a decision of the board. I mean, is that what you're saying?
This here, I have no problem what you have here, okay? That basically, the membership is not that way. I'm concerned about any clerks or anyone taking minutes from the ethics board in executive session.
Right, can I just mention that all of the confidential work of the Board of Ethics is done in executive session? And any board, any body that adjourns into executive session has the authority to invite anyone it wishes to participate or be present during that executive session. It's not like the attorney-client privilege, where if you include someone who's not a client, it destroys the privilege. So I think it would be good to make that opinion of yours, Gordon, known to the Board of Ethics. If the board wished to do it, it could provide in the Code of Ethics that that the secretary of the board shall be that the board shall appoint one of its members to serve as secretary. You could do that. There is a utility, in my opinion, to having a secretary for non-confidential matters. But you could do that if you wished.
We should talk to the board.
We should talk to the ethics.
But yeah, that's I think for another day.
Okay, I'm okay with this, the way it is.
Yeah, Christina, for the next ethics committee meeting, can you add that to the agenda so we don't forget to bring it up? Thank you. Okay, all right, so this will be put on for public hearing at the next town board meeting. Okay, next Monday.
It's funny.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Weeks roll around pretty quickly, it seems. Okay, so our next topic is the SECRA and other professional fees. Stephen had sent around an updated draft this morning, and then I took that draft and put some additional notes, which I forwarded on to everybody. But I'll go through them, one, because it's not on the public-facing draft. And actually, Amber, you had a comment that you wanted to incorporate. So you have one comment, I've got like multiple, so.
I want to comment, please. I didn't think that we could incorporate 6 different amendments in one local law. Okay. Another one is filing it like this. It's not, if you want to change something, you have to change all of it. You have to revise every local law in this. But if you do it separately, if we need to fix something minor, it's one local law, it's one section. And the history of it, it's easier to file separately and find the history of the changes over the years rather than having it all incorporated in one. If you're on mine, to do it separately.
We're amending what, 6 sections? How many?
Different local laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got, oh yeah, 6. 3, 4. Yes, 6.
Can I? Yeah.
Go ahead.
First of all, Amber's 100% right that there is a general principle that one local law may not address more than one subject. I thought about it myself and came to the opinion that since it's the same change in all of these sections, addressing only fees and deposits and costs, that it satisfies that one subject principle, even though it's multiple sections. Nevertheless, if the board wished to do it, I could easily turn this into 6 different local laws I don't agree that if you wanted to amend any one of these later, you'd have to incorporate all of them, because they don't become a single section by virtue of being all addressed in this law. If you wanted to go in surgically in the future and amend one or more of these sections, you could do that. But that having been said, it's entirely up to the board. If you wish this to be broken into separate local laws, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I think when Amber and I were talking about it, it wasn't so much amending the local laws later. It's if we get to the public hearing and there's one particular chapter that gets more commentary and we need to change it, then it would hold up the implementing it for the other 5 chapters. That's what you meant?
That's also, yeah.
Sure, I can, if that's a concern, that had not occurred to me. We certainly can, if you think it's better, go with separate laws. It's only a matter of editing.
I kind of leave it up to Amber and Steve to work out, in my mind.
I'm with you, but let those two fight it out.
Well, in that case, I give up.
I'm fine with 6 and.
I'll have a conversation just to understand it more this way, because I never.
Well, some of it too is how your department works. So if it's easier for you to find the information if it's separate laws for each chapter in the future when we're looking back, then I guess it makes sense to do it in a way that works for your department.
So do these have to be a part of each chapter? So each chapter has to have a public hearing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're doing with this local law is amending each of those chapters.
Mhm.
But instead of having it in a single document, we can have it in multiple documents, each standing for each addressing a single chapter of the code. It would be the same preamble, the same language. It would be, I don't want to give away any trade secrets, but it would be very easy to do.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll give them a call, I just have questions.
Okay, and if you do it, put them 1 minute apart
Yes.
instead of 2 minutes, because it won't take us a minute more, more than a minute on each public hearing, I think.
Yeah. I
Unless
just have questions.
there's some. Mhm.
Process.
No, but it does make sense that if it makes it easier for your department to search in the future for changes like this, that them being individual is helpful.
All right, then,
Let's do that.
okay, so right now, we're saying break until, into 6 unless Amber and Steve have a conversation. All right, so my first comment was we had already passed local law 2 of 2025 for this. I suggested making this local law 4, but I guess it would be 4 through 11, whatever it is. Or 9.
Do local law 2.1, local law 2.2, or
No.
2A, 2B, 2.
No.
Okay.
No. I also had, we're amending chapter 53 docs by amending, I changed it from, instead of adding to amending, because I pulled out the doc law that we just passed, which is not yet updated in town code online. So it would be amending section 53(5)(f). And then going further down, then it's 53(5)(f). And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 instead of A through E. And then because there was a section already 1, we need to show the deletion of the fee section in the new doc code. So that needs to just get cleaned up. And then more importantly, does anyone have anything else on page 1 before I go to page 2?
No.
Okay. The most important change in my mind is in each of these sections, we say initial deposit, commercial properties. I wanted to change that because when we adopted site plan review last year, we changed it or when we modified site plan review last year, we changed it to incorporate not just commercial, businesses, but also not-for-profits such as, or municipalities like the library, Perlman Music Program. So if we just say commercial properties, those aren't technically commercial properties, and therefore we wouldn't be wrapping them up. So I wanted to change it to non-residential properties.
Okay.
And so for dot code, non-residential, I thought was sufficient.
And that's the language we used in the,
Yeah,
Okay,
I went
okay.
back and looked at site plan review, pulled it up, and actually, we have good site plan review in here, but I don't think it's not the new one. But anyway, so I wanted to make that change. For the dock portion, I thought non-residential was adequate. If you go to the next one, which is, that was dock, so chapter 60, environmental quality review, and all of the other chapters. Changing it to non-residential and commercial, but then my question was, what about if we have a greater than two-family residential unit, such as the community housing project that we're taking on? Under site plan review, I think the way we've got it worded, that our project will come before us for site plan review, because of the way the site plan review is worded. But in some of these other ones, what if it's greater than two-family residential? So I was hoping Steve could give us maybe a little bit better language, like would it be non-residential and greater than two-family residential properties?
Sure. I'll, do you want me to suggest something now or think about it and come up with something better?
Whichever you,
Okay,
whatever.
I'll give some thought to it and I'll prepare an amended law based upon this discussion for your review.
And I think going through the rest of the document, it was,
Subdivisions, you can do the non-residential as well.
actually for subdivision, that one I changed it differently. And so for initial deposit, I just said properties because like it's a subdivision.
Right.
So it's not commercial, it may not be commercial. Well, it depends on what the zoning is, but I just
But the
figured,
zoning doesn't matter because it's a.
right, exactly. So I just thought initial deposit properties and get rid of commercial under 111, 28C, and then also, and require deposits to be paid by applicants and get rid of in connection with applications related to commercial properties. Just strike that language.
Which one is that under?
It's under
C?
chapter 111, 28C.
Oh.
Yep. And I had emailed you my mock-ups this morning. Yeah, that was it. Did anybody else have anything?
For wetlands, we might want to do the non-residential instead of commercial. Because a lot, we do have, like,
Oh, yeah, no,
Quite a
that
bit and
commercial,
everything.
commercial,
That goes
I wanted,
throughout.
yeah, that
goes
was,
throughout.
yeah, that's for every single
Okay.
one, same one, except for docks, because I did,
that looks fine.
yeah. Well, actually, even for docks, I guess we could,
So why that be different? Because, yeah.
yeah,
I think that's good. It looks good.
yeah, it was just for planning board and subdivisions.
Yeah.
But had a different color.
Okay. I have an older version printed. Town Board of Trustees. We already fixed that.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, so does anyone have anything else?
No, then we just have to send.
Nope.
Right, so then if Steve recirculates this to us before Monday,
You can take it up next week.
Yeah, I'd like to put it on, set the public hearings for Monday night.
There's no major changes, and it's not
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah, it's just a couple wording changes. All right,
Sounds good to me.
and then we will have to start working on, we'll set the public hearing on Monday, and then in May, have the public hearings. Once adopted, I'd like to have us spent time on actually setting the fees. So we'll need to sit down and work through those. So that'll be a future work session agenda item.
So how will this apply to what's currently in place? So whatever the fee is will stand until we revise it, or?
Right, yeah, that's more a
Because-
Steve question, because I have a feeling that people who've already submitted applications wouldn't be subject to this.
So then, should we have this starting at a certain date? So that any application that comes in after that date, this new law would apply?
Well,
Or-
it does that. The typical language is that this law will be effective upon filing with the Secretary of State. And I agree that applications that are already in would be grandfathered.
Okay. So then.
Actually, grandpersoned.
So we should start working on the fee schedule before this gets put into place. So
Yes,
that.
yeah, so
we
in
have-
that 3-week period, we
Yeah.
have to put this back
Yeah.
on the agenda.
That way it
for-
all happens at the same time.
Yes, because we want to be able to roll it out as soon as it's adopted.
Sounds good. Yeah, because the Secretary of State is sometimes very quick, sometimes very long, depending on.
1 to 3 weeks.
1 to what?
3.
Wow.
That's smoothly, sometimes it took like 6.
Asset management policy is next. We had recently updated our purchasing policy. So it means that we should take a look at our asset management policy because we're changing some dates or amounts in there. However, what
It's contract accounts.
yes, what I was going to say. So we had, so what you originally had prior to today, and then this morning, I was working with Jen Ditta from Colin and Danowski. She had drafted a capital assets policy and procedures that's more comprehensive than what we had. So first of all, what I'd like to do is take our asset management policy and just toss it to the side and start to work on the suggested one she has. She has a couple more items that she wants to put in here, and she had been sick this past week, so she wasn't able to do an update on the wording that she wanted, but she would like to add something about leases and subscription-based IT arrangements. The reason being is that
Appreciable asset?
there's wording in GASB, let me take a look, GASB 87 and GASB 96. Both-
Leases, yes, but subscription services, like
Yep,
appreciable
subscription.
asset?
Well, if you're purchasing a big enough, it depends on the dollar amount. Yeah, so whatever the service is.
Or if it's like a backup for.
Yeah, one of them was 17,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a subscription.
So initially, she's going to take a closer look at it, but she was going to suggest something like a $9,000 threshold. So that if you're, for examples, or for like, on the lease side of things, if we're leasing a postage machine and it's $450 a quarter, the total cost over the life of the lease would be $9,000. Like, do we really need to capitalize that lease? Some of the other subscriptions she wants to take a closer look at, but we do, like, IT department does have a bunch of subscription-based.
I'm not an accountant, so I mean, I think it's ridiculous.
But we do have to follow GASB 87 and
Yeah.
96, so we do have to have policies. And this is one of our schedules of findings from the audit was to, it said we didn't have asset policy,
Also,
but we do, because we do have the existing one.
we should update it, make
Yeah.
it.
Make
Yeah.
it better fit, so it was, then we're addressing another one of the findings.
I was glad to see that the definition of depreciation was changed. Previously, it said that depreciation is a recognition of the asset's decline in value over time. That's just wrong. Depreciation is an allocation of the cost of the asset over its estimated useful life so that you can match cost and revenue. It has nothing to do with valuation. And so that's an important change.
You're getting nerdier than me on the accounting stuff. I like it. So since this was just given to you this morning, take a look at it. One of the other changes is in the purchasing policy, we have a different threshold for machinery and equipment. The purchase order is 1,000, and then if it's highway, it's 2,000. So I asked Jen about that. She said she would incorporate that change as well.
So
She
you make a
thought-
match.
Yeah, so she thought that was good. So it does align.
Okay.
And on page 2, under documentation, I was talking to Judy about this. She would be the property control manager. However, the town clerk's office, it says shall maintain a file folder of each property, a copy of the deed, resolution of the Board of Trustees. It says authorizing the acquisition. That's all documentation that's maintained by the town clerk. So I wanted to keep that the property manager shall maintain sufficient information and documentation on each capital asset, but the town clerk shall maintain a file folder for each property. And then the resolution will be a town board resolution instead of Board of Trustees. And then Jen will come back to us with language for leases and subscription-based IT arrangements. Okay. So you have a chance to look at this, but we'll circulate that. So I don't think we will put this on for resolution on Monday unless she gets it to us quickly and.
Will it change? All the changes are in here already.
This is the one. No, she doesn't, she hasn't included the leases,
Okay.
subscription based,
Got it.
because she drafted this and then realized that
So we'll see another version of
we'll
this.
see another version of this.
I do think this one's better than what we have now, though. It's a
Yeah.
step up.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else on this one?
Do we currently use this type of format?
Judy has something, but this is better.
There's a form, but
Yeah, I like this one better. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but Judy is our property manager.
This is basically keeping track of your assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mike, when we did the thing at the Goat Hill, with the, how does that work with the kitchen that was just purchased? How does it, is that an asset?
It's a depreciable asset.
So then
Oh, yes, all of that
we'll
will,
have this,
yes.
that's a big undertask, taking to do this.
When you have a bunch of assets that are part of a project, they will become like one asset. Like she may, depending on exactly, like some of it's equipment, so like ovens, whatever.
Refrigerator.
Yeah, those will all most likely because they could fail independently, and so you'd want to have them separately
Right.
notated. But some of the structural repairs are taking place up there, like the flooring and things like that. Those will all get consolidated into one project.
But to do one, this for almost every, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, and that's why we want to,
Tremendous undertaking.
Yes.
And it's kind of a clerical, in private business, it's important
Yeah.
because it it's all about taxable income,
Exactly.
right? And it matters.
Right.
Here, it's more of a clerical.
No, but it also, the auditors ask for it every year. So it is part of the documentation that goes to them because they want to do an audit of all of the assets that were purchased to make sure that things are properly.
Really, the highway department are really impacted by this. And
Yes.
their asset list is long.
Yes, but every department
Yeah.
to some extent.
Printers, computers, laptops, they all get
Yeah,
a sheet, IT.
Yeah, PD.
Do we label, I'm just, sorry, do we label? Is that part of the, you got one there too?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Look at it. Right you are. Nice.
Yeah, I didn't take one, I didn't, part of the deep state.
My desk even has one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you agree?
Yeah, if you can just copy me on it, as you know, every piece of PD property that we have over $500 has a property tag on it, regardless of its nature. So I want to make sure that we're in compliance with that policy and I personally like to see the assets go higher. $500 isn't a lot to put a property tag on everything that we have. I don't know if that's changed, but if you can copy me on that, that would be great.
Machinery and equipment would be taken up to $1,000.
Great. So that's in place right now. It's up to 1,000.
Oh, no, it's currently at 500, so we would be upping it once adopted.
Once adopted. Okay, yeah. Yeah, if I can get a copy on that, it would be great.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, then I'll keep going. Anyone else with any comments? Okay. All right, next is 2026 fees for protecting business on town property. Gordon, you,
I just, I sent something out, okay, I'm assuming everybody has it. I didn't hear back from anybody, so well, when I really looked at it again this week, I said, well, is it possible that we can create a fee structure so that we would have a discount for our existing businesses that have brick and mortar? That's why, when I put the revision there, I said, maybe like with the trucks, this is just the thought process, okay, of, is there any, do we handle our businesses that are on the island differently than just anybody coming to Shelter Island?
Well, they're given a preference, when they apply,
Right,
if there's a competing applicant for whatever it is,
Right.
a spot on the beach, we try to give the brick and mortar businesses a preference.
okay.
Is there anything else? Which is a good
Well,
thing.
the other thing is beach stickers. So if they're at the beach, they have to get a beach sticker. If you're a resident and you're getting a sticker, your sticker's free. If you're not a resident, you have to get a beach sticker, you're paying the $250 for your beach sticker as well. So for people like Bone Spa, they're paying for the permit fee and the beach sticker. So there's that.
I didn't know how to handle the short-term thing on Saturdays. I don't know how, is it just a Saturday for 2 hours?
Saturday for 1 hour.
1 hour?
Yeah.
What do we do now? Do we collect for that?
he's charged $250.
$250?
$250, yeah. The same fee as everybody else.
It's only one Saturday
Mhm.
for an hour.
Yes.
One Saturday a week. I mean,
One
say
Saturday,
one
yeah.
Saturday a week, but it's
Yeah.
it's not just one Saturday in the summer season, it's every Saturday.
So I was a little confused by your chart. So your revisions are that the,
Basically, if we don't want to do anything as a discount structure, it basically, I still have that 300 for trucks at 350.
okay, so I'm just really confused by this chart then. So in the 2026 rate chart, you have the darker rectangle, and that has the 350 for the truck. And then you had the Crescent Beach truck at 400, the beach space at 350, and then a beach space for 20 by 20 at 500.
Right.
The locker at 50 and the landing at 350.
Right.
But then to the side of that, you have revised and you
Well, if we
the
don't wanna-
trucks all the same.
If we feel adequate that having preference is valuable and it's not necessary, I was thinking of if we wanted to, we could have a difference in the rate chart, but if you feel that the preference is enough, okay, I would go right with that chart.
So go with.
What's in the box?
The box.
Okay.
And
But the
then no island discount.
The what?
And then no island discount?
Yes, because we're giving them preference. If we were going with Islander, then I would, the revision portion there.
So then my question is, why is the food truck at Crescent Beach $50 more than the food truck at Wade's Beach? And then does Mr. Softy fall under Crescent Beach or Wade's Beach? Or is it, so should it just be a flat truck, like food truck rate?
Well, what I did is I looked at, I thought that Crescent Beach is certainly more active, and there's more revenue generated at Crescent versus to Wade, and I could be completely wrong, but that's the reason this is fluid. If we feel you want to change it to something, this is the time. I just wanted to get in place.
I mean, that's sort of instinctual, that's sort of my instinct, is that Crescent would be more active than Wade's, but then
Well, I
again,
look at Crescent because first of all, we have, there's more police activity there. There's more marine patrols there. I think there's a little bit more services that are being performed there.
but for instance, the truck that's at Wade's prefers being at Wade's and has said they don't want to be at Crescent, so, you know, maybe there should just be one truck fee.
I'm game.
Well, and I think that, the fact that there are more services at Crescent Beach doesn't mean that there are more services at Crescent Beach because the food truck's there. So I don't think it makes sense to charge them more because there's more at the beach. It's the same service that the other food trucks are providing. It just doesn't seem like fair.
Maybe just one truck fee, $400. What is it now, 250?
250.
250.
I looked at the CPI adjustment, and these rates haven't changed since 2021. And if we applied CPI to it, the rate would go up to $300 from 250. Just tossing that out there. Just because when I was looking at like Crescent Beach 20 by 20, that's a 100% increase over last year.
Right.
I mean,
Like a 350.
yeah, I'm just tossing it out there. And also, when I was cranking numbers, I was seeing like $1,000 benefit to the
The
budget.
bottom line is when you have a fee of $250, if you look at the number of weeks, what we're saying is we're renting space out for $25 a week, which it somehow, it seemed incidental. And all I was trying to do is just to really recover what our expenses might be. The highway department's going to instruct them. I mean, there's other things here. I think 250 was off, I think. But, I'm open to, I just like to get something in place for next year. And I think the whole idea of the 20 by 20 is that, it creeps from 20 to 20. And I thought it would, if people can keep their space into 10 by 10, remember, it's a public beach. It's meant for the residents of the island. I'm looking to discourage them from spreading out.
I like a flat fee.
With you.
I think it's flat fee
I mean,
is easier.
What would you propose for a flat fee?
As a starting point, 450.
450 for everything across the board. Trucks or on beach.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted, if you were to consider an incremental, I would consider a 10 by 10 versus a 20 by 20 incrementally different there. It's taking up space, a lot of space on the beach. I mean, we have two entities that take up a lot of space on the beach, really.
Then we have someone like Trent who only takes up a minimal amount of space for 1 hour in one day.
That's a completely
So
different.
that feels like.
Yeah,
would be
that,
cool.
I'd have a separate category
Yeah.
for that, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that's, you know, it's one day. I don't know. I'm just,
Right now, he's paying $250 like everyone else.
Yes.
Which kind of making some sense here.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out, like, just to like
I mean,
write this up.
I do like the difference between the 10 by 10 versus 20 by 20. I think
I'll
that-
agree with that. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Albert's making some sense.
I don't know. I was starting with 500 the last time we spoke. Whatever. I don't know. It's a business.
You know, for 8 weeks at least, and something, they're doing pretty well.
So what if we did like a graduated rate? So for someone who, like Trent, who's only there for a short period of time, doesn't take up a lot of space, is there and gone, keep that at 250. For someone who has a designated space but is not on the beach and they're not taking up a parking spot, like Mr. Softy who travels around, the Islander, Stars, and Ride Shore do 350. And then for the people who do physically take up space, 450, because they're taking up that 20 by 20 space. So essentially, like, I guess Ride Shore's taking up 10 by 10, so maybe make them 400 if they have a 10 by 10 tent,
And then what's the 20 by 20?
450,
Only $50?
so 500.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're going to make distinctions like that and have different people paying different amounts, you want the criteria to be very clear in a written policy.
That's what I'm struggling with. It seems, I don't know, I think it makes more sense to just have one flat fee for business on town property, no matter what the business, because then it doesn't.
No matter the size?
Yeah, and then it's up to us as to whether or not we permit it. No, you can't be 20 by 20, it has to be 10 by 10, or, you know, that's up to the board to make those policy decisions. But
You do 400, it's based on truck or any business there, and you limit it on a 10 by 10 space, and then it's an exception if they want larger space.
But they get it for the same rate? That's what they're-
It's hard, I mean, it's hard to say, like, you know,
You get one 10 by 10 for whatever amount, and if you want two of them,
Everybody would take two.
I was with you, what were you doing before, man?
no, I know, I'm trying to figure out how to make it work without making it look like we're picking on specific businesses. You know,
And give them
and,
a certain amount of space no matter what.
right. You know, and the other side of this is we had 2 businesses not even apply this year because they're like, it wasn't worth it. We didn't make enough money to make it worth paying the fee. And so, you know, there's that side. You know, there's a lot of overhead for some of these. And the other thing that we're not, yeah.
How about if it's a truck, it's $350. If it's one beach space, $350, 2 beach spaces, $500.
And define a beach space as a 10 by 10
10
tent.
by 10. And then for the 2 hours in the morning for stretch class, that's the old $250. Seems fair.
Doesn't seem fair, right? It doesn't seem fair for the guy for the only Saturdays for 1 hour.
I
Correct, you're there now.
I mean, because if he gets two people who show up, he's taking what, 20 feet?
So we was thinking about 350 and what?
350 truck, 350 10 by 10,
And-
500 20 by 10, 20 by 20. And we
That's it.
let the exercise class just do it for free? Or make them just leave it where it is at 250. Pay 250 there. I don't have to raise that.
I like the idea of the 20 by 20 being more, you're trying to prevent spread, okay? And,
I also think at this point, though, those two businesses have been that size for a significant number of years. They've been 20 by 20 for at least the last 4 or 5 years. And the way we had it defined was 400 square feet. That's what they got to use. Yeah.
If I would go to the beach, would I observe a visible perimeter to each user's area? How does that work?
You wouldn't really observe, like, there won't be lines in the sand, but what we're doing this year to help identify where the space is supposed to be, Bond Spa has 2 tents and they stay within their tents. Venture Out, because they have paddle boards, they tend to get, they get stacked in different places. So we're going to try to designate their space with 2 flags in the corners so that we know that it's from like the railing to the flags. And then the food trucks have designated parking areas that don't take up public parking spots. And so does the kayak. So they have designated spots set out in the resolutions approving them. Is that helpful?
When you're saying, the kayak and paddleboard place, where, I mean, they take up from the rail to the shore.
Right, well, this
So
year
where,
in their resolution, we said that they only get that 20 by 20 space and we're gonna stake it where the edge of their space is so they can't take up all the way to the water. So that they kind of know where they're supposed to stay. And then it's easier to enforce. And then the Shelter Island kayak guy, he knows where he's supposed to park. He has designated parking. We told him where to go.
In rideshare, how much space do they take up? They've got,
They just have a 10 by 10 tent just for while they're
Sitting there.
waiting.
I have an idea for like the casual uses. If if it's $350 for a 10 by 10 space, how about $50 per day? Like if he's doing it 1 day a week, then he pays $50. If he's doing 2 days, like have it graduated that
Right.
way, and it's comparable to the other businesses, which could be operating 7 days a week.
So then
we clean all the other beaches.
We clean the bathing beaches, so we clean.
Reed, we clean,
Yeah.
every morning they do.
And they rake Manhattan too, I
It's
believe.
not every morning, it's like 3 days a week. 2 or 3 days, it comes around.
Spades, Crescent, and
Manhattan.
yeah.
So it's something that we do if the businesses are there or not. It's just basic maintenance. And the businesses are supposed to be taking care of their own trash. It's not something the town should be taking care of. So, I mean, the fee is really to cover administrative costs for implementing the fee.
Well, we probably already spent it today.
Yeah.
All right, so where are we going with this?
$350 for trucks,
Mhm.
$350 for 10 by 10 spaces, $500 for 20 by 20 spaces, and $50.
what was the number, what are you saying, Amber? I can't.
Oh, sorry, so trucks, $350. 10 by 10 spaces, $350. 20 by 20, $500. And casual users, $50 per day.
For once a week.
Yeah.
Or if they do twice a week, then it would be $100.
Yes,
Because it's 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so if they go once.
So if he's just going every Saturday, then
$50 for the whole
he's,
summer.
yeah.
Got it.
Makes
Maybe
sense.
more than the fees.
You do 7 days a week.
you're doing every week of the summer, he has 3 months, you're gonna.
Oh, no, I was gonna, just the number of, yeah, so it's just $50 for the whole summer. Yeah. So the revenue impact on that would be $29.50. This year's makeup as opposed to the 2,000.
No, it'd be 28, it would be $800.
That's different. You put a minus in
From Trent?
I'm over here.
Oh, this was if we did a discount, that doesn't count for it, if there's the local discount, so we're just. I surrender. It's this column is the one to look at.
Oh, it's the kayak guy. He's a smaller space.
He's, Burns Road. I counted
okay.
him like a truck,
Yeah.
whereas it's just the trailer that we
Oh,
park.
okay, got it.
You know,
Alright, that's
there
fine.
there are no complaints to his operation.
Okay.
It's not in anybody's way. It's just not.
Yeah, I counted him like a truck.
All right, so all that, we pick up $800 in the 2026 budget.
Okay.
The other thing is, when I was having Amber just look up, what the fee increase would be based on CPI, outdoor assembly permits have been $100 since 1970.
Whoa.
That would translate to $846 in today dollars.
So bizarre.
So do we want to make, since we're considering this, do we want to make any changes to outdoor assembly permits? We waive a lot of them for not-for-profits,
Yeah.
but we did collect 8 of them last year.
I don't know if it's,
And it's $100?
Plus a $100 refundable deposit. Just tossing that out there.
we do waive
It's
most
been
of
that way
them.
since 1971.
1970.
On the local law, it's pretty good.
Well, what do you want, 200? I mean, you don't want to make it 3, that seems ridiculous.
I mean, most of the places that come to us are like the Historical Society and.
Well, we're gonna
you
waive
know,
those anyways, it's really just for,
Well, I don't know that we waive
People have
those.
parties?
We waive,
we collected 8 of them last year.
Yeah.
For this. I looked up what was,
And they were
if it's
from
charitable,
private people?
if it's charitable, we waive it.
Weddings or weddings on the beach or things of that
Which we
nature. I mean,
typically don't approve. Weddings on the beach in
If it's in
July
the
and
summer, yeah.
August. We have, we'll approve them in September.
I thought you
For
said they
June.
included weddings.
No, well, we don't
Not during
necessarily
the summer,
give.
no, but we approved them. We have.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
in
yeah.
like September and June, but not really like in the peak season.
I'm gonna say 200, 250.
200, double it, and be done. We've already spent too much money just talking about this.
You know, yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah. It's just not like there's 60s to write up
There's
the.
$1,600 pickup in revenues.
Okay.
Any public comment on that one? Okay, next topic is Historical Preservation Committee.
The Harper, yeah.
All
I
right,
mean, I asked for this to be put back on, thank you. I think it's a reasonable idea, and they've done most of the work for us. I think where we really need to go now. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
What do you think?
No, run with it, 'cause
We need to go through it and make sure it fits properly in our town code. And has Steve Leventhal looked at this?
I think we should look at it before we have Steve look at it.
Okay. Do you have any comments, Meg?
Do.
Okay.
I don't think we should go over them today.
yeah, what I was gonna suggest
Well,
is
the next
send, creating a subcommittee. Because
Okay.
besides looking at the code and kind of like making, some changes, there's some other moving parts. Like, we need to have a clerk, we need to have a budget, are we gonna charge fees? There was a sample form here. So, like, what is it going to entail to implement this? Like, we can't just
Yes.
set the public hearing and have, and then pass the legislation. There's structure that has to be put in place.
Is it a
So-
board or is it a committee? Is it?
Because I mean,
work
looking at
in
this,
town structure.
yeah, when I was looking at this, it was sounded like it's a board that has decision-making power, so.
Isn't it all voluntary?
But that's not clear in this. Like, there's a whole bunch of things in it that we would need to make decisions on.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
because-
there's stuff here where it's like weighing in on use, a change in use.
Right,
And
and
it's like,
that's not,
do we want that? Like, that's site plan review, if it's a change in use, there could be a zoning, so like, how did that all fit together?
right.
So I feel like there's just a little bit of a deeper dive that needs to take place here.
Can we ask about the intent, the original intent?
Well, I think that, I mean,
That's what I was gonna
the
suggest. a
intent should be
subcommittee.
outlined in the purpose. Right?
But we have a representative of the group that put this together sitting here in the audience.
Yes.
Can we ask him what his opinion is on the intent? Was it supposed to have independent authority? Was it not supposed to?
I mean, it's not going
Yeah.
anywhere yet, so. Chapters.
For current.
I'm okay with asking.
Well, I'm
questions.
wondering if it's supposed to be working with our currently drafted town code for the historic preservation committee, because we have legislation creating a committee, but this seems to take it a step further, beyond what a historic advisory commission, what their power and duties were, or it kind of puts them into a certain category.
Can we ask?
Yeah, I was
Can you
gonna
step up to
ask
the
the
podium
question. Yeah,
for a
I
second?
feel like we have a broader, we need to.
We're asking these questions and you actually have a lot of the answers.
Yes, I don't think so.
Give us some background.
Again, I'm Robert Harper, and Shelter Island Heights. And thank you for hearing me. First of all, it is a voluntary group. Every single one of the East End towns, the other four, they're all voluntary. So there's no cost to hiring anybody or anything like that. When I spoke with Reed Karen, he said that the application fee for of a building permit could incorporate a fee for this. I don't think that it would be a great amount. He said it would actually make his job easier because we can kind of pre-review what he's doing. I left that part of it, or we, I should say, Karen is also here who was on that group. We left the fees and that type of thing up to you, the town board. I don't want to get involved in monetary things.
I'm less worried about the fees. I'm more interested in the authority.
For the intention and the
Sure.
structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Councilman Diet, I just returned from France also. And I was amazed at how they value historic preservation. I was in Bordeaux, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I looked up how many places in America are World Heritage Sites. Want to take a wild guess? Entire United States?
0.
No, that's a little more. That's a good guess, though. There are 26. In New York, it's things like the Statue of Liberty, Niagara Falls, that type of thing. But in France and Italy, throughout Europe, actually Italy has more UNESCO World Heritage Sites than any place on the planet. They really value their history. And Bordeaux, most of the buildings there are around 1800. They're beautiful. They're built with this gorgeous yellow stone. And you were in Paris, and I'm sure you realize what a beautiful city that is. Again, a World Heritage Site. And they're taken care of. Right now, we do not have a single iota of protection for any of the historic properties on this island. We're the only place on the east end of Long Island. And if we went further up the island, there are many places that have historic preservation commissions. New York City, theirs started in 1963 because of the demolition of Penn Station. And if we didn't have that, They call it the LPC, Landmarks Preservation, LPC Council, I'm not sure. But we would have a very different New York City. We might not have Grand Central Terminal. They want, Penn Central wanted to tear it down. And there was a Supreme Court case, and our council might be able to weigh in on this. Penn Central versus the LPC. And the LPC won. And they determined that municipalities have the right to protect their historic resources.
Well, that case was more about it being a taking or not, but anyway, go ahead.
So, as I said, we have no protections here. A person can apply for a demolition permit, and if it's granted, they can tear their house down. Doesn't matter if it's a historic house or not. They can do whatever kinds of renovations to it, anything on the exterior, they can put in whatever kind of windows. There is no place that I know of that has the historic properties that we have here that does not have protections for it. There was a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I guess, about the comprehensive plan and how that would play out with this. I can't imagine the comprehensive plan not having something to do with historic preservation and protecting these properties.
But that's the rub. I'm in support of this, and I asked for it to be put back on the agenda, and I live in a historic home here in Cheltenham. You've been in my house. But once again, I'm concerned about, well, my question is about the authority.
Sure.
But I think that's our decision to make, is what kind of authority they have.
Well, I'm trying to find out the original intent of the
Oh,
group.
okay.
that-
Yeah, well, if you want to ask about what the law entails, you could fire questions at me and I'd be happy to answer.
So what was your original intent? Do you want, if we create this board or commission or whatever we want to call it, committee, will they have some decision-making power as far as stopping people from tearing down a building or a home?
They would have a review. So you would look at a building and you would say, look, is this beyond saving? Is it historically significant? Is there a compelling reason why this building should be demolished? So right now, it's just you apply for a demolition permit and it's granted and the house is gone. This would just provide a little bit of extra protection, a review, each individual property.
So it's a recommendation.
No, it would be more than a recommendation. It would, every other HPC has legal authority to say, no, this is historically significant. Riverhead actually has where the town board can recommend putting houses on, landmarking houses, even if the owner opposes it. So, as I said, I did this for 8 years. I tried to make this as user-friendly as possible to avoid any kind of pitfalls. But the idea of it is to preserve the houses that would otherwise have no protection.
Robert, would you identify a list of houses?
Right now, there is a list.
How would you, or any old house, or how would you?
It's an excellent question, Bob. When the law in Southold was first created, they had to make a list, because you can't have a law and don't have anything over the jurisdiction over. So what we did was we took all of the houses that are either in a National Register Historic District or an individual listing on the National Register. That would entail about, we have 3 historic districts, and we have not a lot, I think it's 11 individual landmarks, and those would be the initial ones. And what we would also do is encourage people to put their property on the National Register. So yes, there is a list, and it is included in the law that we submitted.
Well, maybe the question is it an opt-in basis?
Should be.
For instance, if there's like a house that is deemed historically significant, would they automatically be subject?
No, not unless they're on the National Register. As I said, we have to have an initial list. So individual listings and properties within a historic district. As I said, we have 3.
Got it.
Chevron Heights is one, Sylvester Manor is one, and Winnipeg.
So you wouldn't come to me and say, you are now subject to this?
No, but I would say, I would love for you to put your house on the National Register. We get you 20% tax credits, and we would save what I have seen to be an extraordinary property.
Well, that would have been great 10 years ago. I've already done work in my house.
Well, you had told me too that there was a chance that someone was going to buy that and tear it down. would have been a great loss to Shelter Island.
It's worse than that's how I got the house in the first place. The
Exactly.
person I was bidding against told the seller they're in their town. And we told them that we were gonna preserve it, and they sold those instead.
Exactly. That's what we would try to do. We'd also, it's in the law also, identify historic properties that have not been recognized. Actually, Cameron is a real expert in that. Almost none of the earliest houses here, the ones that date back to the 1700s, almost none of them are landmarked. And we have the Robb House, which you've looked into a great deal also, very historically significant. So many of them, again, have no protections, and as you saw with your house, could have been torn down like that.
And my house was 1765.
Right, pre-Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And so much of it's still there. I mean, we had a great time looking over the beams and everything else. But no, that's an excellent question. We would just encourage people to do that.
And just to be clear, I mean, that's where I would have a problem with, if it's in a historic district or if the owner has opted in, that's fine.
Right.
But, don't march down my driveway.
No, as I said, I think Riverhead is the only township on the east end that allows for that. As I said, the board there can designate a landmark without the owner's permission. And I don't think that'll fly anywhere. I don't know how they got it into Riverhead, but they did. And there are others, individual ones, like Sag Harbor has their own code. There are parts of Southampton that have their own code. And what they have done, there's so many things that they have preserved that might have been destroyed. The artist William Merritt Chase had a colony, an artist colony there, that the developer could have bought, knocked down everything and put in house, but it's protected by their landmark. I also mentioned the Sag Harbor movie theater.
Right.
They got from their Community Preservation Fund $4 million to preserve that sign in perpetuity. So please, any questions?
Was that after the fire then?
It was after the fire. Yeah, it was sent to fix the sign also, but also that they have what's called a facade easement on that. So the sign has to stay the way it is.
So, well, that's a lead into another question, which is preservation easements on property. But,
So,
thank you.
oh, sorry, you took it.
No, thank you.
So, a prerequisite is that the house has to be considered a historic landmark,
By the National Register of Historic.
National Registry.
Yeah.
Now, is that involved, forgive me, I'm ignorant to this, age or perhaps who lived there or a combination of, or?
Another excellent question. You hit on two of them. If it's associated with a famous person, that's one thing that can get you on the National Register. That was with William Merritt Chase. If an historic event took place there, which I'm pretty sure is what Sylvester Manor, how they became on the National Register. Associated with a famous architect, so you'll see almost all Frank Lloyd Wright houses are preserved that way. Or a particularly good example of an architectural style. Or in the case of Shelter Island Heights, a community that's so authentic and so consistent that it almost never appears anywhere else. I can think of Martha's Vineyard. There's Methodist campground that's there. It's, what's the place?
Oak Bluffs, you're talking.
Oak Bluffs, yes, thank you. There's Ocean Grove, New Jersey. There's Cape May, and all of those are communities. On Long Island, we have Orient Village. In Greenport, we have Greenport Village. Part of that is on the National Register. And you may be reading in the paper lately that they're expanding their historic district because they don't want to see their homes torn down. So it's just from the waterfront to First Avenue, First Street, I never get them right, in Greenport Village is on the National Register. The rest of it is not protected. We just managed to get Sandy Beach, which is a across the water, but still part of Greenport Village, to get them protections under the local law. So National Register means nothing in terms of protections. The only thing that matters is local law, which is what you're proposing.
So we have Goat Hill. That's on this, though.
That's a National Register, correct?
Right.
Yep.
It is?
We couldn't get grant funding when we needed to do
No,
some.
no, they are, because I know Ron Lucas, when he was the president there, he applied for it, he got that designation for Goat Hill.
They're eligible, they could be eligible for up to 50% tax credits because they're commercial property.
Well, they're owned by the town. It's owned by the
Yeah.
town, so
Okay.
Yeah.
we don't pay taxes.
No, they could just, they don't pay
It's
taxes.
hard for us to do
Oh,
renovations though.
If they don't pay taxes, you can't get a tax credit for, if you don't pay tax.
In the case of Goat Hill, the idea is that you want to leave the building, the outside skin basically the same, okay? You want to continue that.
We were trying to get grants and we didn't qualify.
Jen Mazzano was not able to fund
If
it.
you'd like me to look into it, I'm working right now on trying to get a grant for the bathing pavilion in Chiltern Heights. And I might be able to get them 50%.
That might be interesting, but that's one side. The other side of it is preserving the physical existence of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which, for Goat Hill may or may not be a good thing, I don't know.
That was in 2009, it is.
That's what Chief says.
Well, consider too, when a building gets demolished, first of all the energy that went into constructing that building is now gone. We call it embodied energy. The cost of, the environmental cost of putting up a new house is not just the wood, it's the factory where the wood was milled. It has to do with trucking. It has to do with you're gonna make a window, getting argon gas and everything else. It's very material intense. And there's a saying in preservation, the greenest house is the one that already exists. But also consider this, let's take the Heights because it's where I live. And you probably are familiar with my house. People go by it all the time. It is on the National Register. And picture, if I decided I love my location, I love the Heights, but I hate the house. I could apply for a demolition permit tomorrow, knock that down, and I could put up a glass box if I wanted to. What would that do not only to my plot, but all the surrounding ones? When you have a district, it's every single house in that district is something that makes it what it is. And when you start losing one here and one there and one here, after a while, that district doesn't have the charm, the feel that it had before. And when you ask, what am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to prevent that from happening. It's not going to be a terribly big deal. I would imagine maybe 4 to 5 people a year might apply for a building permit on an historic house. In Southold, just about all the people that did apply, and there were a lot more there, they were always grateful about what we did for their house. We have one, I'm on the Architectural Review Committee for the Heights. There's a house known as Corner House, Waverly and Wesley. It's directly opposite the chapel. That house, I had a lot to do with what it looks like today, but it was advisory. They didn't have to listen to me or us. They could have done whatever they wanted. And I did see an initial plan for that. And it would have been a shame to have that directly across from the chapel, which is on the National Register.
I believe in your mission and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how this can officially fit into how town government functions.
Do you want an example of how it would work?
Yes.
Okay, let's say your house is on the National Register and you want to, your windows are leaking air and you want to put in new windows on your house because it's energy efficient, right? So you go to the building department, you apply for a permit. and the building department looks up the list of properties and says, oh, look, you're on the National Register. Before you go to the building department, you need to visit with the committee or we use the word board because it seems everything else is called a board here.
Use the word committee.
I wasn't sure which to use, but we wanted to be consistent. So you come before us, we have a hearing. What we would recommend is what we call a pre-submission hearing, where we just talk back and forth. And I say, okay, you want to put in Anderson windows, right? The size of those windows is going to be a determining factor in the look of your house. So instead of doing something that's single pane, bigger than what's there, would you consider then doing, your house would probably be 6 over 6 windows or 4 over 4, in the size of the opening that's already there, the historic opening. And we would go back and forth like that. And once we decide on something, it goes to a public hearing. And then you would get what's called a certificate of appropriateness that you then go to the building department with. And as I said, the fee for this, which should be negligible, could be part of the building department permit application. So you go to them now and you say, Mr. Karen, I have my certificate of appropriateness. And what he said is that takes care of a whole lot of ifs for him. Because now it's this window, it's that door, whatever. And then you get your building permit and you do your work. So as I
Once
said,
again, you have to be inside the district already
or on the
or
National Register.
voluntarily joined the list. Cool.
Right. We do have many properties that are already on the National Register. That would be all the ones in the districts, and I believe there are 11 individual landmarks. Some of them too are already in a district, like the Union Chapel. It's a separate listing on the National Register, but it's also in the National Register district. So again, I think if you wanted this to jive with the comprehensive plan, I think the first thing you would want to do is obviously you want to do something that would say this is important to us.
What if the homeowner doesn't want to take the recommendations about how to change their windows and they
Well,
just
that
want
happens
to
now.
change the windows how they want?
Then-
Right, but under the commission, if you guys make a recommendation, do they have to abide by the recommendation? Yes.
Yes, and that's, as I said, every East End town would have to do that, yeah. And believe me, we've saved an awful lot of mistakes. That there was going to be a McMansion right behind Pocatuck Hall in Orient, designed by a starchitect, Peter Cook. It was so incompatible with the neighborhood. And we were firm in it. They, I believe, went to an Article 78, they lost. And ultimately, they sold the property and a new buyer bought it and put up exactly what, it was a little beach house. And they just added a porch to it and a few other things. But it's gorgeous. And this prevented that from happening. So yes, it would compel the owners. But as I said, we do the pre-submission conference. We toss ideas back and forth. We don't want this to be a hardship for anybody. In a lot of cases, we actually have saved people money. Like restoring windows and putting a invisible storm window in front of it can be just as efficient as a new window and cost a whole lot less. So, and as I said, it's a very green initiative type. When you're throwing materials out, you're wasting stuff. And windows are very easy to restore. It also brings these kinds of jobs to the island. They're specialist jobs, like what Chris Fokine does.
Just on a technical question. So to make this a prerequisite to a building permit, they don't have to be a board, they can be a committee.
That's part of what needs to be figured out.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I was suggesting a subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just two board members plus Robert and a few other people.
Okay.
Read Karen if he has time.
I would be glad to be part of that committee.
I would be glad to be part of this.
Okay. We got 3 or 2
Bring
volunteers.
Karen to agree. He's a real restoration guy. I don't know if you're aware, he did a brownstone in Brooklyn. And I haven't seen pictures, but from his description, was incredible. So he knows materials, he's extremely knowledgeable. And as I said, he gave his thumbs up on this.
No, it's an interesting story if you ever talk to him about it. I mean, because I did restoration on Brownstone and Brooklyn too, but we went like this on our restoration projects. Mine was very different than his.
Oh, okay.
But I get it, and I think this is a worthy topic of discussion.
Robert, can I ask you, in the Heights, you're relying on, there is no controls, or you're relying on people voluntarily working with you or whomever it might be to any modifications to their house to keep it, to stay within keeping of the existing.
I agree with that, except for the voluntarily. If they're on the National Register.
Okay, they can't voluntarily, they're beholden to oversight within the
It would
Heights?
be just like if Reed Karen came in and said, you can't put up that structural beam because it's not gonna support the weight, they would be compelled to do that. Otherwise, what you have is spot restorations. You have somebody here said, yeah, like on the corner house, they said, yeah, what you said is good, we're gonna do it that way. But they could have said, no, we're gonna go with our original plan. So unless we can have a dialogue and then say, compel them to do what I would think is the right thing, that would not make devalue the neighborhood or make something that's atrocious next to the neighboring houses. There's one in Brooklyn, Brownstone, in Park Slope, where I was born. And then the owner decided to paint it pink. And you don't look at, Brownstone, your eyes go to pink. And it ruined the rhythm of that neighborhood. I always say when you have rights, you also have responsibilities. And this person just kind of thumbed their nose at the neighborhood. And thankfully, that house was bought and the pink paint had been removed from it. But what you do with your property affects everything around you. And I would hate to see houses demolished or inappropriately restored. But I said, we're not, at least in Southold, we were not the aesthetic groups. You need people on a committee or board like this who understand architecture. Otherwise it becomes, I don't like that. And that's where you lose your credibility. You can say, his house had four windows, or 6 over 6, I forget which, but, and that's what you did.
6 or 6.
Yeah, but you did it on your own. Oh, God bless you.
Yeah.
But let's say that other owner. Now that
They would have raised the whole house.
62 house would be gone. So that's what we're trying to prevent. And as I said, it's worked very, very well in many communities. New York City would not be the same. Robert Moses wanted to put a highway down the center of Manhattan, and it would have destroyed what's now known as the Cast Iron District, kind of Soho, that area. Wanted to go right through. Would have created 2 neighborhoods on both sides of the road. And the LPCs prevented that from happening. If you look at Sag Harbor, all the beautiful historic buildings there are because of their HPC. And Orient Village. And that's what people wanted too, right?
What are the financial benefits for someone to put their property as let's assume they accept it being historic? Are there any financial benefits to the owner? Are there any tax incentives?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, give me an example, like what?
Tax credits.
Tax credits.
Tax credits. I've gotten $100,000 worth of tax credits for people in the Heights, and they had no idea that there was even a program like this.
Is it 20%?
It's in the presentation.
Yeah, we had a presentation in January,
Okay.
so some of it was listed there.
And again, I would be willing, I've done this for the Heights, I'd be willing to do a workshop for owners on the National Register. If you're a residential property, it's a 20% tax credit, not a tax deduction, which is worth so much less. A tax credit is if you have an $8,000 tax gift in New York State, and you get a $2,000 tax credit, now you owe $6,000. So it's literally, it's not money in your pocket, it's money that didn't leave your pocket, if you want to think of it that way. For commercial properties, it could be anywhere from 20 to 30, and you can get two. If it's a commercial property on the National Register, you can combine the state and federal tax credits and get 50% tax credits on the work that you're doing on the building. And think of how that would have benefited many of the buildings that have undergone renovations here on Shelter Island. But nobody knew about it. So yes, there is definitely an economic benefit. There are other grants that people can apply for. There are certain things right now that it's called SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. They're interested in African American history. They're interested in Native American history, and there are grants available. I know Sylvester Manor has taken advantage of a lot of those that deal with those subjects. So yes, there are definitely economic benefits.
Like I said, I'm less concerned about, well, I'm very concerned about how it's gonna fit in with how our government works. And I think the subcommittee is a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's needed.
And I assume you and other people on your commission are willing to join that effort and sit with us? We can't do this on our own?
Yeah, that's right. But if you were looking at your comprehensive plan and you thought, where are we going to start? I'm looking up there, it says 1652. You don't see that in Levittown. This is a significant place in terms of historic preservation. Then what you would do is you would try to get a group of people together who are experts on this. And just very quickly, we had Becky Northey, who's a New York City attorney. We had Karen, who's an author, also an expert on Revolutionary War, grave sites.
And houses.
And houses. We have Lori Beard Raymond, who knows town code inside and out, especially when it comes to building. She was invaluable, especially with New York State building codes. You have me, 8 years of experience on the Southhold Commission. I've done 40 years of restoration work, my own houses. One in New York City, two on the North, one on the North Fork, one in Blue Point, and one here. And if you want to check out my experience, you're welcome to come to my house. I'd be glad to host any of you. I'm just starting on the outside right now. So then there's my wife, who's an author. She just finished a novel, historical fiction, based on the North Fork. She's also a grant writer, and she's an expert in Victorian textiles and window treatments. We have Stella Lagudis, who also is familiar with many, many aspects of life on Shelter Island and government. We have Tim Pertell, who everybody loves. He's on so many committees. Can't beat Tim Pertell. And then, of course, we went to Reed Karen, who also knows his stuff. So I think the first thing we would do is put together a group like that. And normally, on the South Fork, I'm not going to mention his name, but they have a guy who does this kind of thing. And he would charge $50,000 just to kind of do what we do. He also charged, we asked him to read the application for the East Marion Historic District, which I helped write. And he said, sure, I'll do that for $20,000. So if you want to talk about saving money, already you would be way, way ahead of the game because you wouldn't need to bring in paid consultants unless you don't trust the expertise that we've put together.
No,
So
the
is there a formal-
concerns I have is we need to have a clerk for the committee and so those
Yeah.
kinds of costs and also
Sure.
just infrastructure in place to make sure this happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And understand. Yeah.
Could form the subcommittee?
No,
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
it's just a,
you guys are now a
Uh-huh.
subcommittee. Congratulations.
So can we do that? Can we just decide on it?
We can have the first meeting at your house.
Ooh, all the meetings we had doing this were at my house. And I wanted it to be that way because the law wouldn't cover interiors of anything. But we have done the place authentically to the period of about 1885, which is when the house was built in 1883. So all the furnishings, every single thing in it, Victorian wallpapers that are reproductions. So to be in that setting, I think is real conducive to be talking about historic preservation.
I know Stella's been had her hand up patiently for a while.
Oh, sure.
Didn't even see that, sorry. I was just going on and on.
Stella, I don't know if you're still there.
I am, but I think Robert did a really great job of hitting all the points that I was going to add, so no need to take more time up. Thank you.
And for the town board, I bumped the January 7th presentation so that.
Yeah,
I bumped the January 7th presentation that group presented to us. So you can look at it again.
We have also looked at, even through community preservation, there was a parcel that we looked at that we were trying to conduce the owner of the property. It was an old house, you know the one I'm referring to, on Midway, okay? And that one actually would have helped we were trying to help the owner in that transaction, and to make a transaction happen by really buying the skin of the building, so it remained the same. And it was really, there is this thing through preservation, you can do some of this, so I think it needs more exploring, but I think it's a great, and if it's only, and it's a clerk, that's what we're talking about, we're not talking about.
Yeah, I bring it up because it's just like, we need to figure out clerk availability, budget, if we're gonna have fees, there was some forms presented, so we need to have everything if we're going to do this legislation.
You have to
besides
have legal, you need to.
Would this committee, would it do like a foundation where it has its own fundraising or something? Don't they create their own revenue in some portion?
There are some places that do that.
Okay.
And as I said, my wife is a grant writer, a very successful grant writer. And there are probably opportunities like that. I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay.
I do have strong connections with SHPO in Albany, and they are so in favor of this. They're so excited about the tax credits that people are getting. At one point I said to them, should I not be talking about this anymore? Because people are applying for them. They said, oh, no, this is great. It's not money out of their pocket. It's not money that the federal government is doing. It's just money that they're not getting in tax revenue. And it's such a small amount of the tax revenue that the state gets. We're talking $100,000 that we've gotten here. Think of what tax revenue in New York State is. Subtract $100,000 from that and it's like nothing to New York State. So that's, doesn't cost them anything really either. As we wrote the law too, we were very conscious of trying to make this as economical as possible. So no one would be paid on the committee or the board, whatever you want to call it. And that's the case in all of the East End ones. They're all voluntary. And they're all appointed by the town board.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah, I just want to add or supplement to what Robert has briefly put out. Karen Care. I've been here for 53 years, and I'm a history major, a history sort of nerd, very neurotic. My focus has been our revolutionary houses. We have 16. I'm in the process of making a calendar for 2026 that highlights those 16 revolutionary houses. And to me, the important thing is, what are people's value system? Do you have a value that history is important? A lot of people, I have a son who thinks history is just a waste of time. Yet I have another son.
I like your son.
That's it. You got the right one then. History is the most important thing in the world, because now that he's found out his family goes back to the Mohawk Indians in the 1600s, he realizes he has Native American blood, and that's very exciting for him. So I think the key thing is people valuing history, and do we want to save our history? If we don't want to save our history, then we destroy these historic structures. So my focus over the years, being a member of the DAR, has been the revolutionary houses. And I have 16 that I'm going to put in this calendar I'm designing. Now, normally what happens is the shell remains. The houses that I'm familiar with, the exterior remains, and the windows, you're going to change them, are all crucial. But inside, you put in the new bathrooms, you put in the new kitchen.
Right.
So a lot of times people think you're infringing on their property rights. And that's not what this is about. It's really to get the people, when you buy a historic house, I assume most people are interested in some historic aspect of saving that house, like Ben was in his house. Otherwise, you have the people Like in Sag Harbor, the house on the left, the 1700 house right before you get to the bridge, it's all been restored.
Yeah,
It's a mid-18th century house. But then if down by the water, there's a big ugly mega mansion. And what happened there, the people that bought that property wanted to destroy the Revolutionary House. So they went to the town and there was all this negotiation. It's about negotiation. Money's really not involved. The owner agreed to move and restore that historic 18th century house up to 114 if the town would give him a variance to build his mega mansion right by the water, which you don't even see. So the town stepped in there to help save a very important historic structure. So it's really like a big world, and with what Robert was saying, a committee, and all the East End towns have them start as an advisory committee. So like when I've spoken to Gordon about the Robb House, that's one of the jewels of all historic houses. It's barely been touched. So hopefully when someone buys that house, someone can go to the people and say, we'd like to help you if you're interested. Because people get very sensitive about their property rights. You know, don't tell me what to do with my property. I mean, we know how that goes. But the program Robert's talking about doesn't do that. It's not taking anybody's rights away, but it can happen. I hear stories from Zach Studenroth all the time about he does examination of houses, and if it's not able to be saved and restored, the owner will demolish it. So that often to the distance, you just want to sort of try to stop that. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Thank you.
a question, Karen. Karen,
Yes,
of your list of 16 houses, is my house on that?
well, you and I have to have a discussion. It looks like your house was 1802.
Ooh, nah, I gotta dig up the records. The earliest records I had were 1770.
If you have a document that can show that to probably the original core, like Gloria and Dorsey's house that's just been beautifully restored down there on the creek, that whole house is in 1700s, but the core part of it is. So you have to really look, in your house, it's probably a section of it that is 1700s. But if you call me, I'll put you in the calendar.
Ask Louise Green.
Gonna need 5 more months.
All right, so we have a plan.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Okay, next item, proportionality.
Again, I asked you to put this on, thank you. I'm not sure what to say here other than,
I was
can we kick this to next week?
Yeah, I mean, what I was curious about is just like what's changed,
Well, I can tell you where we left off.
we couldn't agree.
According to my recollection,
Yes.
which may not be accurate. We went pretty far down the road, almost to the end. The only thing where we got stuck was we couldn't agree on the total gross square footage that we're going to include in the law. And that's where we got hung up, and that's where it stopped.
I think we got
No.
that far. We weren't going to deal, I thought we weren't going to deal with the gross square footage because that was like such a thorny issue that we dropped it. We couldn't even agree on the max size per acreage. And then there was
It was a
also,
Same
twofold
issue.
problem. Yeah, it was a twofold problem
Yeah.
because we couldn't agree on the max size per acre, but then we also couldn't agree on the gross versus SFLA.
Why?
So
Well, maybe it's just my
We have
position.
to-
I think SFLA is ridiculous and we should throw it out. And the gross square footage and the proportionality are kind of the same issue. We just gotta figure out what the max is and figure out what you want to apply to different property sizes and go with it. But glad it's back on the schedule. And we can have a more intimate discussion about it next week. I mean, yeah,
is everyone else good with that?
I mean, I think we have.
I think one of the issues that came to light really is understanding the ramifications of what we're deciding. That we're really not, I don't think, capable of understanding. We really have somebody to come in and take a look at the size of the properties that we have on the island, the numbers and the ramifications of
No,
that.
I think on this one, we need to do an environmental impact study.
Well,
Yeah.
it was also brought up last time that we shouldn't be making these kind of zoning changes without the comp plan in place. So maybe we should finish the comp plan.
Well, that's,
Oh, they can also be done in concert. but
But
Well, I
that was
wanted
why
to
we
put comp plan
repealed
on,
the
but-
pyramid law, was because that was a zoning change that was done about the comp plan. It's why, you know, it was the rationale for a bunch of things that happened last year or didn't happen last year.
That's
So
we also
we should-
repeal the pyramid
law.
the pyramid
Yeah.
law, because instead, that's the only thing we passed, and standing alone didn't make
Yeah.
sense.
I
We needed
It
this
makes
piece.
sense. No, I agree, but the whole rationale behind that was that the comp plan needs to be done before we start making those kinds of decisions.
Well, we can do it in concert, I
So-
mean, we can do both, we can do two things at once.
Well, we're doing like 12 things at once.
Well, I wanted to put comp plan back on today, but Coco's out this week, so
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
And because we're almost done with the comp plan, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we have to finish going through reviewing the changes, have whatever chapters, like chapter 4, I think we're in the middle of. So we need to just keep going forward, but we'll do that next week.
So to recap, really happy to see it back on the agenda, but let's move it to another week.
Okay. Site plan review. Excuse me. Some history there is, site plan review was adopted in 2011. And then in 2017, it was repealed and new law put in place, and then there were some modifications made in 2021. So we've kind of gone back and forth with this over the past 8 years. And so what was circulated to us is, I think this is the 2017 version. Yeah, 2017 version.
I think this is much cleaner than what we have now.
Yeah, and I mean, what we need to, like, what I'd like to have everybody do, and this was just sort of a precursor, give some homework, is if we could get, Amber, if you could circulate the different drafts over the years so that we can put them side by side and start to tear them apart. What's working, what's not working, what do we like in the old code? What do we like in the new code? I think that Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, I think when planning board looked at this, they had suggested going back to this.
Yeah. There was
With the 217.
Yes, and we actually had, before we repealed and did the other, we have forms, because right now we're using the special permit form, but we have forms already created, so if we went back to this, we could move it ahead faster, because we've already got everything in place.
Yeah.
We would just have to double check the structure. But Amber, if you could circulate that, so we have just.
So, do you have the forms that are connected to this as well?
All the changes, yeah.
Oh, you mean the form, the application form?
You just.
Christina has that.
Christina.
She had done work on that. Do we want to set up a working group on this one too?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I know that they've already had a working group in the past that
Right,
went
yeah.
over this. It was like the planning board, chair of the planning board, Reed, 2 board members, I think, and Christina and attorney. So
Yeah.
we can do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, just to sort of, I mean, I think maybe synthesize it down so that,
Yeah.
Is the site plan review gonna go back to the planning board?
that's a conversation we should have.
Yeah,
Right.
otherwise if you should maybe have Julia,
And what?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
chairman.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, definitely for the subgroup on this.
Good point out, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
I think it should go back to the planning board, frankly.
yeah.
Site plan.
Yeah, and like ZBA gets pulled in and ZBA should
There's
have
no
more
reason
part in
ZBA
this.
should not be in it.
Yeah, so there are some tweaks in the existing code that really need fixing. Okay, so Meg, you volunteered.
Yep, I'll do it.
Anybody else?
Well, you volunteered for one thing too.
It should be.
I was gonna say. Yes, you two are working on historic preservation. Do you want to work on site plan review? Or-
I wanna finish wetlands review.
Okay, all right, so you're on
And
wetlands.
that's another whole thing I want to
Yes,
talk about.
yes.
So they go hand in hand.
Wetlands and site plan?
You know, make a few, I'm on the planning board with you, so if you want the help, I definitely will.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think this one's gonna be a very big lift. I think most of it's already been done in the prior
Yeah.
meeting, so this is.
All right, so Megan Gordon on that with Julia. Yeah, read and phone the town attorney is needed. Okay. All right, good.
Okay.
Board member reports. Contractor License Review Board, we met last week. We are working, we got like maybe halfway through the code, the current code with some suggestions and edits, and we're going to pick it back up again tomorrow so that we can continue going through it. Yeah, I will present it once we've got everything fixed, but it was a good sit down, roll up your sleeves drafting session.
It was good.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I know, I think we met for 2 hours and only made it halfway through the code, and then I summarized the changes afterwards, so I sent those around to try and capture those. And I had something else too, let me just find it. So for the Community Development Block Grant, we have talked about shifting. We had designated 60,000 towards police department renovation, but we're nowhere near doing that kind of a renovation. So that money just be there or go unused. So we had talked about flipping the years, and we want to put in a handicap ramp up at Goat Hill. So designate, instead of using the 2025 CDBG grant for PD, we'd use it for Goat Hill, and it would get that moving faster. However, Barbara has talked to the county and says that we need to do that kind of a swap on what we're going to spend the money on. We need to have, since we had a public hearing in November for it, and actually November before, in 2023, we need to have a public hearing with a 30-day public comment period. So I'm going to put that on set the public hearing on Monday night. And then we'll have a public hearing in June so that we can make that change.
Okay.
So just wanted to alert you to that when you see it hitting the resolutions.
Works for me.
Oh, and also back to License Review Board, we are still looking for another member. And they do not have to be a contractor or a retired contractor to serve. So just,
This is licensing board?
yes, the License Review Board. So. And then also, looking at my notes here.
We'll talk that later.
Okay. For the North Ferry and South Ferry rate increases, so next Wednesday night at 7 PM, we will have the public information session for the South Ferry rate increase, and the Suffolk County Budget Review Office issued reports on both North Ferry and South Ferry on April 14th. So those are on the Ferry Study Group website, webpage, if anyone wants to take a look at those. And you can see all of the current fares and proposed fares for both of them. So those are out there, and we'll have our public hearing, and both of them are set for public hearing at the county legislature on May 6th. So that's all that I have.
I can go next. Green Options Committee is looking for a new member. So if you're interested, please send a letter of interest along with a resume to the town clerk, and she'll forward it to us. The Health and Wellness Committee has been working on developing a needs assessment. So they're starting by doing some initial interviews with some key stakeholders in the community to get some of their general input. So we're starting with an interview process to get some basic ideas of what the community needs. And then it'll follow up with a more formal survey to be able to have some actual statistics to back up some of those observations. So they're in the beginning stages of that. So that'll be ongoing. In the future, we'll have some sort of focus groups. So you may have someone reach out to you or your organization and ask if there's anyone interested in participating in a focus group. It's so that we can better better feed the needs of the community, figure out exactly what services we need to give better recommendations for or references for, or what services we could work on developing ourselves as a town. So keep that in mind going forward. I'm sure you'll start to hear something about it in the near future. The Water Advisory Committee finalized their homeowner's guide to fertilization and lawn care. So that brochure is now available. It's at Town Hall. It'll be on the town website. And it'll be found around town at some different places. So it's very interesting. It's very helpful. We recommend you take a peek at it. It's pretty well done. They worked hard on it. And that's all I got.
On vacation.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Meg, you did a good job with the WAC. The only thing that I'd like to add is that obviously the water issue in terms of the drought condition seems to be front and center, that the water levels have fallen down significantly from 2016, so it's really at all-time low as we're entering into the dry period of the season. So they're following that very closely, and I think that since water is important, I think they're doing the right thing there. I was just thinking to myself, I forgot to mention something earlier today. I didn't know today was Earth Day. Okay, and how ironic with preservation of buildings and our earth and the quality of life, okay, it's sort of important, okay? I would like to, I don't want to do it today, but I'd just like to continue maybe next week with maybe be a little more prepared to talk about the Capital Grants Committee, okay, in terms of why be more focused and why I think that it really should be, we can do something that's more transparent, okay? And I don't know what's transparent, but be more in really sharing some of the good things that the town has been doing with their block grants and so forth, okay? And the other thing that happened, I guess, this morning during a exchange of emails, I'm glad to see that we are getting the pilings taken care of over on the causeway where the town landing is. So finally, that will be taken care of. So that's something that we can check off the list of having accomplished and gotten that done. So I think that's pretty important.
Just to put out there, last year we couldn't take them down because there was a floating dock that was attached to those pilings, and then there was the osprey's nest built on it. So we couldn't do anything with it. So just, it's long overdue.
But the osprey are not there this year, so we can take them out.
Well, they're on the pole.
They are, they're somewhere else.
Right, they're on the pole.
There was another like floating.
Yeah, but it's not attached to our pilings anymore.
Right, yes, no, but I thought that they
In the
like,
middle of the day, I saw them.
they came back to a different place,
Yep, they did.
another floating dock.
They did.
And the only other thing is that next week I'd like to see if I'd like to maybe talk alone or what. I think it's time to really get in, just to take a look at the budgeting process. I know that we have all the financials now from February or the monthly reports, so it might be a good time. I know that we've both been attending the clear government assessment, so I guess we're waiting until our next meeting to see what goes on, but I think that's some good stuff that we have, and I think that I just think it's time to, I think we can take a look at it, because obviously we keep talking about it, but obviously, we have a lot of things that are influencing. We got like a perfect storm here on the island relative to our finances and the public, okay? So I think it would be good taking a department and pull it apart line by line and still, I think it's early enough to do that, okay? But that's all I have to say.
The wetlands code revision, I mean, I guess it's twofold. My question, one, is another clerk available, just so we can move this forward? I mean, rather than wait till the end of May, I mean, that'd be a month and a half will have transpired. And another clerk available to sit in, I know Christina's not available. And then the other part of that question,
I'm here, we just don't have local law drafted.
we don't have what?
A local law drafted, yeah, I was about to say, I don't understand how the clerk, like, there is a clerk, associated with this, so I'm not sure what the issue is.
Time, just to move this forward. We're waiting a month and a half now.
But what, you're,
For the
we're
I
waiting.
don't know, but the other part, and wait,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was.
the other half is Stephen's availability. I don't want to speak, you know, it depends on his availability, obviously. It's not just the clerk, it's his availability. I understand that. So I want to make sure that he's involved in that. It just seems like I suggested it last week, and that was the 15th, and now it's moved to the end of May. It's a month and a half
I was not aware of it, so I'm,
before we can address it. That doesn't make sense. I'd rather not wait a month and a half to move forward, because I'm thinking it's at a point now where we can really have one meeting as a committee and then move it to the town board for discussion.
So
I thought you two were working on it.
we are,
So I
and
didn't
part
know
of
there
it
were
is,
scheduling issues.
Albert, you didn't say if you were available for any of those.
Because I
dates.
wanted to discuss it here today.
But you still didn't respond to the email as to whether or not you were available any of those days to schedule a meeting. So we put out.
Well, the 15th,
dates.
the 15th and 16th, we're going to have the entire
Right,
committee
Julia couldn't
available.
make it,
So then it was like the 29th to 30th, which is fine with me. But I don't see why we have to wait that long to get together.
So we also didn't get, I wasn't at the last meeting, but at the last meeting, I think everyone was assigned different work to do to bring back to the committee, but nobody sent anything back in yet. So people who were assigned certain tasks or projects or goals, they haven't sent us anything. We don't know if they've done that part that we could then talk about and incorporate at the meeting. So there's no follow-up from the other committee members who were assigned projects as well. So I think if we give people to the 29th or the 30th, because there's, you know, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference at this point.
Christina, you weren't at the last meeting?
I was.
Christina was,
No,
I was not.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
cool,
okay, but I know, but what, I don't know what you're referring to. Who was assigned what? I don't remember that at all.
Reed was supposed to send in definitions, Stephen was supposed to do a research on dewatering, and redraft part of the law. There was an extensive follow-up that was supposed to happen, but then we started to do all the other local law.
Whatever.
So, yeah, we'll keep
Can I-
moving it forward.
Can I just say that I'll be happy to get done whatever my part in this is, without any further delay. I'll touch base with Christina and find out and clarify exactly what she needs from me if I don't have it apparent in my email correspondence already. And I'll get it in.
Stephen, I don't try to involve you, put you
I'm
on the
not-
spot here with this.
I
It's just
don't,
my issue, that's all. That
I don't feel put on the spot, but I want to help facilitate whatever I can. Thank you.
Anything else, Robert?
well, that's the earliest we could meet is May 29th. Is that it?
May 29th?
Yeah.
Well, we had May 15th and 16th, but those
But
didn't work.
there was conflict.
Right,
Yes,
it's-
So many
earlier,
attendees.
if we have something to look at.
So there's nothing before May 29th that we could meet?
I mean, we can try to meet earlier and just go over what we've already gone over. If nobody has new input, we can redefine what people are supposed to be giving us. I don't know what happened at the last meeting, but I've been told that there are a lot of outstanding pieces to it.
Okay.
So-
Well, then let's just wait till the 29th.
I was gonna suggest, why don't you get together and recover everything that's due and then set them date.
Yeah. We can do that. I'll sit down with Christina and do that, but then Albert, you have to say if you're available for any of the meetings or
I'm
not.
available both days, okay?
On the 29th and the
30th, yes.
29th and 29th.
Or one last thing, okay, when we met with Joe Fenora, when we were discussing the center, as far as that, he said he was preparing something to present to the board. I'm assuming I know that he's got some personal things going on in his life, okay? I haven't heard any good news, okay, so I assume.
Later this week. Later this week.
Later this week, so we're probably gonna be within next week or the week thereafter, I guess, is when he'll probably have something together.
I would say
No.
not, no. I
No,
would say later.
I think I've got it scheduled for June 3rd.
June 1st.
June 3rd, I think, because he's out for 3 weeks. And so, given the timing of him coming back, I just was giving him a little bit of time to, and then. It may not be June 3rd, because if we've pushed our meeting to May 22nd, I will take a look to see if that works. Because I was taking into account that we might not have the May 20th meeting or the May 27th meeting, so then it was.
What are the meetings we're missing? May what?
Well, May 20 has been
27th.
moved to 2022.
Right, yeah,
Right.
Okay,
or May 26th, whatever it is. So it's just the one, we're now just down one work session.
Right.
So when I said June, I was thinking we'd be down 2 work sessions, but since we are, in fact, just postponing it a few days, I think we're okay.
Yeah, but he only gets back that Monday, the 19th. So
Right,
if
that's
he
what I was
gets
gonna
back on
say,
the
I needed to
19th,
take a look at his
That could
time
get
out.
tight. He may not be able to pull that together in time.
okay, just to confirm, it's about June 3rd, you
June
think?
3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, June 3rd would be it, yeah. Yeah, that's what I needed to check to see when he's back.
Yeah, he's back on the 19th.
Okay, because my calendar's in the other row. Yeah, because I figured 20th was too soon, 27th was no meeting. Okay. June 3rd, yeah. Okay, I would like to go into executive session. We were supposed to have an interview, but that's been canceled, but we do have reviewing some employment histories. And
So move.
yes,
Second?
all in favor? Aye.